This is the Dog Psychology Podcast with Lynn Bokey, Todd Langston, and Art Ortiz.
Kitten, like
Uh-oh.
4 or 5 week old kitten, and I was doing a little intro with Blue and doing a little thing because I think Blue's going to be kind of maternal with her. She's interesting. She's got a prey drive. It's definitely not triggered by the cats, but it's yeah. I think this is going to be one that they connect. I've had cats and dogs for years and years, but I've never had like a cat and a dog that really connected with each other. The cats do cat things and the dogs do dog things, and everybody gets along, and they can all be in the same room and eat around each other or whatnot. But
What dog is
never
this,
like
Todd?
Blueberry, the shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a kitten and a dog, a puppy at the same time, they don't know anything about anything. They love each other.
That's how I met you, man. I got a kitten and a puppy at the same time.
There you go. But that was a different puppy.
Yeah, that was a different puppy. And I tell you what, we just had to put that cat down just now, so that was that long ago.
Wow, they live forever.
But
even if you have older dogs and you bring in a kitten, it will adapt quicker than bringing a cat that's a year or two older, because they're like, if they've never met a dog before, hang out with them, they're like, dude, what the hell is this?
Dude, an appointment a couple weeks ago, I'm helping these people with a German Shepherd puppy. They get this young puppy, and they have this gray cat. It looks like a tomcat, so just kind of this like in Tom and Jerry. It looks exactly like that, just a solid gray cat. Now this thing has like an energy of steel, right? So the first time I meet it, they're talking about how badass this cat is, and the second time I meet it, I have my dogs with me, and I bring Blueberry into the backyard, and when I bring Blueberry into the backyard, the cat gets up from what it's doing. Now, if this would have been a dog, this would have been like the assassination stalk. This cat gets up and just goes boom right over and was going to go into a full attack mode of Blue. The owner of the cat comes over and grabs it by the back of the scruff and picks it up and takes it over and sets it on a table. We continue. This cat kept trying and was going to attack Blueberry.
Dude, I used to have a neighbor that lived behind him. We used to call this cat Ninja Cat, and the guy had a German Shepherd also, and he would walk his dog on leash, and the cat would follow him around the neighborhood. And sometimes the reason why we called him Ninja Cat is because I'd be walking the pack. I'd have a pack of 10 dogs, and I'd be walking. All of a sudden, this cat would just run out and boom, smack a dog, and then run right back in. And like I was like, what the? And the dogs would be all worked up, like, what the hell is that? So every time I walk, I had to look around for this cat.
If you keep watching this kitten, and Jen's doing it with her other cat too, is they're harness training them so that we can walk them. Because when we had Cheeto and Turtle, I lived on a golf course, and they would follow us on walks. I actually have a video of Turtle, my cat, following us on a walk out to the pond, walking around the pond with the dogs and walking back. They're not pack animals, but some of them are social enough that they'll kind of pack up.
Yeah, I've seen a few people having cats walk along with them and their dogs on social media. It's pretty cool. They're fast enough if another dog comes, but to get away. But man, I'd be nervous that they'd get hurt. But they're cats.
Have you ever owned cats? Have you ever had cats, Lynn?
That's the only way I had any kind of affection when I was a kid. There was constantly 20 of them around, and as I would grow, my dad would either, whatever he did with them, I know he killed them, but got rid of them a lot. But that was the only way I got affection as a kid. One would get tired, the next one would come up. And then it's kind of funny because Caesar used to tell me, Lynn, you're not a cat. You're a pack-oriented species. And he didn't know that I was basically raised by cats. So it's kind of funny that's really how I am. I'm always by myself. It's hilarious. But I love cats. I'd love to have another cat.
It's so interesting. You are a cat.
Really, cats.
I texted Caesar because he doesn't like cats. I texted him the kitten. I said, "Hey, dude, I got this for you. I'm gonna FedEx it to you. You'll have it in the morning." And he's like, "No, not ready."
No. You keep it, Todd. You keep it with your beach
Cats
bumps.
are cool, man. And they raise themselves. That's the coolest thing is you can go on vacation, really, and they'll be like, "Hey, no, just leave the food. I'll get it out for myself. Just leave something to scoop the litter box with." They're so self-sufficient.
There's always that reputation that the crazy people have the crazy cat lady, right? And I'm sure that all of us have worked with a crazy person in the dog world,
Dude.
right?
Wow.
The
Like,
craziest.
dude, so like, Lynn, what's some of the craziest stuff you've ever encountered working with like clients or,
Oh my God. I'll let you guys go.
where do we start?
Let me
All
go
right,
through
I'll
the
start.
Rolodex.
I'll start with one. And for some reason, there's a
Pick one
history
out.
of some of
Let's
my
see.
really quirky ones being mental health professionals. And so
Yes.
I do this. I get called to do this appointment for like a 10-month-old. I don't know if it was a Labradoodle or a Wheaton or what it was. I mean, it was a pretty basic case, maybe 8 to 10-month-old dog. Really nothing wrong with it. It kind of excitable, maybe some house training accidents. I don't really. The dog wasn't memorable in any way. And so the way that it started is we're talking, and at some point, separation anxiety or structure comes up, is what it was. And I'm trying to make analogies because the appointment is a mom, a dad, and like a 14, 16-month-old child, right? So now maybe a little older because mildly verbal, walking around. And so we sit down, we get started. And the first thing I notice, and I see this a lot, you guys may see this, it's very difficult now for parents to ignore any sound kids make, right? So the kid makes any sound, makes anything, and they're at what? So there's this constant attention to the behaviors, whatever they may be. And this was like extra high, so it caught my attention. And then at one point I say, hey, it's kind of like when you put your child in a crib or a playpen so you can go take a shower. I'm like, that structure is kind of freeing. It gives you a moment. She goes, what are you talking about? She goes, I can't put him in a playpen. He's got serious separation anxiety and he has to go in the shower with me. And I go, oh, fuck. Right. So I swallow it because I'm like, okay, fuck, I can see where this is going. And a couple minutes later, we're talking. At this point, we're standing up, and the kid drops to the ground, and he goes, like, "Mommy, sit." Mom, I'm not kidding you. Drop like a sack of potatoes. So like this kid had mom on like a remote control dial, and this thing was going on and on like this the whole time. So I get to a point where we're outside, and I'm teaching her how to walk the dog with the stroller, and the I'm a couple steps into the walk, and the baby goes, eh, or something like that, and just made a sound. And she goes, he's afraid of men and afraid of new people. And at this point, I'm like, I stop and I go, lady, I go, that ain't it. And I start like, look, what the fuck? Kind of like, what is this going to take for you to kind of see this thing? And I didn't cuss. It was just, I just go, lady, that ain't it. She burst into tears. She runs into the house. Now her husband's with me. She locks him out, right? Now the part that I think is entertaining is that the husband stays with me and finishes the appointment. And in my mind, I'm thinking, if you would have done that to my wife, I would have beat the shit out of you, right? If you would have said something that would have made my wife fly off the handle, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, dude, this guy's been waiting for this for forever, for somebody to kind of call this out. He had to go climb in through the back window to get into the house to get to where he could write me a check. So the next day I get an email. That's this long hate email from this lady. And the long story short is the point that she pointed out to me is that everything she did to appease the child was a technique that she used because she was a child psychologist and an expert in child development and behavior. This was the email she gave me. So she gave me this whole email of justification of why she sucked so bad, and then tried to make it something that was normal. And it was the running out and tears and locking her husband out and the husband staying with me that really had my attention. So that was a good one.
Go ahead
Wow.
there, Art. That was a good one, actually. People are crazy, and that's an expert.
That's the whole point. Yeah, right? The
Wow.
kid had full 1,000%. If in the dog equivalent, it would have been anything that the dog did in any type of verbal or fidgety action would have gotten an immediate auditory eye contact type of response, right? What's up? You okay? It's okay. What? Right? It would have been like that. So you just know that everything gets reinforced. It doesn't matter what it is.
People do that with
Pavlov's
their
kid.
dogs every day too. You know what I mean? We see it all the time,
Totally.
whether it's their kids or people and their dogs. I really feel that people overthink things. You know?
I think it's two things, Art. I think there's that category, but I also believe there's an entire category that due to the safety mechanism of not wanting to face things, they have no awareness, because to have awareness, you have to look at yourself.
Right.
And you have to really look at yourself, and you have to look at the way you do things and the way you respond to things. And a lot of people can't do that for a lot of reasons. And so when you start to ask them questions of, hey, do you see that? Like, oh, I didn't even, oh, no, I didn't know I was doing that. I was saying that, because they live anywhere but in the moment. I mean, anywhere but this little moment now is, I think.
All right.
Yeah, it's just insane. You know, that's it. That's worse than a helicopter.
Yeah.
So I can think of two stories, but I'll just share one. So I was hired by a very extremely wealthy family here in Dallas, and there's a neighborhood in Dallas called Highland Park, and that's where all of the billionaires live. It's surrounded by the city of Dallas. It's its own little city, and there was a very wealthy family that hired me. He was the grandson to the heir of this energy company. Okay, and so I go over there, and he meets me outside. And we kind of talk about his dog. He had a yellow lab, and he said that the yellow lab was attacking everyone in the house, all the workers. So I go inside the house, and he says, "All right, sit down right here." So he sits me down like he's my therapist. It was this weird like couch looking thing. So I'm sitting there, and I said, "So what's going on?" He's like, "Well, this I can't remember the dog's name, but he's biting everybody in the house. Everybody that comes in the house." And so I start asking more questions, and it's like, who is it? Is it targeting one particular person? How, all these questions about how do they come in? Where are you at this point? And he goes, it's mainly just the females, the maids and things like that, the help there at the house. And I said, well, if I'm going to work with you, I'd really like to work with them as well, so we can work through this whole issue. And he says, no, can't do that. And I was like, why not? He goes, well, because they're women. And I was like, okay, what does that have anything to do? What does that have to do with anything? He goes, well, they're incapable of learning. And so
what country
I was
is
like,
he from? Did you say?
From here. He's from here. Yeah. And then I was like, well, this is kind of odd. And then I just kind of like, maybe I misunderstood what he said. And meanwhile, the dog is there. The dog is just hanging out like a normal lab, just kind of like hanging out and doing nothing. I see nothing. And I see nothing but just a calm dog just kind of hanging out. And I was like, well, in what case has he gone after a male? He's like, well, if I'm like working out, he'll go after somebody. All right. Okay, cool. Let's go. Where do you go work out? So he takes me take an elevator up to the third floor into his workout room. And so he starts looking, yeah, so usually I'm right here on my yoga mat, I'm stretching, and someone walk in the door. I was like, oh, let me see. So he starts stretching, and I walk in, nothing. He goes, well, let me see. Let me get dressed like I normally would work out. I'm like, okay. So I wait there. He walks out. He comes out with no shirt on and shorts, like gym shorts. And then at this point, I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird, right? So then he starts like stretching and starts doing like yoga poses. And I'm just standing there watching. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. He goes, wow, I'm surprised he's not doing anything.
Why don't you take your shirt off too, Art?
No, that's where it gets to, okay? I mean, it gets to that point, right?
Come get closer, right?
So then he was like, can you get closer to the mat? I'm like, sure, no problem, And at this point, I'm already starting to get a little uncomfortable because I kind of feel it's getting weird. And so then he says, can you
Your weight that's weird, by the way.
Yeah, he's like, can you start doing some stretches with me? And at this point, I'm like, okay, all right, dude. I don't know if I'm being punked right now, but I'm out. He was like, well, I need help with my dog. I said, I'm not the person to help you. I don't know what's going on in here, but I can't help you. I don't care how much you pay me. I can't help you. He was like, well, can I just show you one more thing? And I was like, I guess. He's like, cool, let's go outside, because he goes after kids too. I'm like, oh, great. So we go outside. And I'm like, I don't want to get close. There's like a school he lived kind of close by. And we go out there. Dog does nothing. I was like, look, I'm not seeing anything. I don't know how I can help you. And so I end up calling the woman who had hired me. And it was the guy's girlfriend. And I'm like, hey, am I being punked right now? Because the dog's doing nothing. And everything he's telling me is just kind of weird. Like, he's kind of a weird guy. She's like, no, like, he has bitten several people, and because of who they are, we don't want a lawsuit and take a dog away. And then I just said, look, I can't help you because I just can't help you. Like, it just got super weird. And so it's funny because when I asked Dan, I was like, hey, what story should I share? She's like, share the story of that family.
So did you end up helping them, or
No.
you just
No.
went away looking for Ashton Kutcher in the parking lot, see where his van is?
Oh, I literally, and I told that to the woman who hired me. I'm like, am I being punked right now? Because this is really weird. Like, this is really weird. She's like, no, he's really biting people. And she's like, we really need help. And I was like, I can't help you. I saw nothing. I
That's
just
when you
don't
should
know.
have sent me in. I'd have said, okay, let's get in that pose. All right, I'm going to stretch you out.
That would be
Yeah,
weird, Lynn.
nothing.
That is
I
weird.
had a real wealthy. They were worth 7 or 8 billion family. They owned a giant electronics company, and I was hired for. The dogs were all barking. The lady would sleep on a mattress and box springs in the middle of the living room, and this lady's worth like $7 billion. So I'd go into the house, she'd be sleeping, everybody'd tell you to be quiet, and the dogs would start barking, and they're like, well, what do you want me to do about it? And one time the one of the dog walkers comes up and goes, hey, be real careful with what you say because we think they spy on us. And that afternoon they brought me in to sign like an NDA. Some of these wealthy families, you get into staffs or you get into these bigger houses, they are so difficult to help at times. Any house with a staff is
Oh,
a
yeah.
challenge.
Those are the worst because they don't want to do anything with a dog. And what's really bad is these guys are worth $7-8 billion, whatever, even $100 million, or even $1 million. They've got all these people in there, and instead of hiring somebody professional to either walk the dog or come train the dog, they make the housekeepers walk them, or
Yeah.
the chef. And when I go and talk to them, you can see that all they're trying to do is get this dog. They don't want to lose their job, so they say, yes, I'll walk the dog. And it's a nightmare for them most of the time. And all they want to do is get back to doing their job. I think it's ridiculous. It disregards who they are, and it causes problems for the dogs. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Over and over and over again. I'm sure you guys have seen it when you got to work with the staff of the house. They just want to do their other job. They're not, it's crazy.
And on the event, like some of these people, because you'll find in the staffs, you might have people that are coming from other cultures or countries that actually have a great eye and handle on the dogs, but they're apprehensive because they feel like if they do it the way they're supposed to, that they're going to get in trouble for that. So they lose either way.
Yeah.
They really can't execute it maybe the way they see it needs to be executed. It's like stepping in to raise the kids. And yeah, it's a lot of pressure. It's awkward.
It's
really
not,
awkward.
it's unfair,
Yeah.
And you see them out there in their white uniforms walking through these wonderful neighborhoods. The dog, you got that kind of money. I just saw we saw an ad a little while back where some billionaire wanted to hire somebody to live with the family and travel around the world to take care of their dog. I was like, I was this close to, hey. But what about my dogs? But that would be the life, wouldn't it? Right?
Now, I will say that I do have a family that I work with. I do have a family that I work with who, it's worth a lot of money, and they have their staff, but I'm part of their staff with the dog. Yeah. But here's the key is that they don't just rely on me. They actually have a really good relationship with the dog. They spend time with the dog. It's not just an accessory. And so that's probably why I really like them and I really like working with them, is because not only am I doing my part because they want this dog to be fulfilled and, get training quite often, even though the dog doesn't really need it, but they're like, we still want it. Like, we believe in what you do. We believe in what we've got, what we have in him, because he's a German Shepherd. He likes to work. And so they allow me to go there and work with him twice a week. But they also have a really good relationship with him. They spend time, they take him out to their ranch and he gets to be out there off leash. And so there's that aspect as well. Not everybody who's wealthy just has a staff.
Oh, no.
No.
It gets weird.
Some people, I went to this one client and they're super wealthy, very well known. And every time I was there, which was nearly every day of the week for a few months, they had tutors coming in and out for the kids. I mean, the amount of money that they spent on education for their kids and making sure that they were brought up right was amazing. And they did the same thing for the dog. I was there to really work with he was 11 years old at the time, the kid, and spent a lot of time with him. But there are families that are so oriented to making sure that they get the kids and the whole family get what they need. I appreciate that.
They travel. When I was boarding, the great thing about some of those families is that they travel so much, and it's just such obscure schedules that you almost end up partly raising a lot of their dogs. I had a few clients where you're boarding their dogs, 1 to 2 weeks a month at times, consistently for maybe a year, and so they literally become. It's like you're sharing custody, and you raise them. Especially if you get them young. If you get those dogs in a nice pack, and especially when it's not, you're not crazy busy, you just got a nice number. Those end up. You talk to those people years later, and those dogs are amazing because they were raised and socialized really well from a good pack early on.
I miss that part of my having a facility because and if I could do that over again, I would only have people, not just because they're celebrities, but people who travel a lot and they leave their dogs with me for weeks and months because they're off doing something. I would love to have a facility just full of those dogs. They're basically my dogs and with my dogs. And it's consistent. I just loved that. That was a really great thing. I actually ended up with a couple of, Tina. You guys know I don't talk about celebrities ever. I'm going to kind of break that a little bit today because my story has to do with celebrities. And right now with the dogs that you're talking about, I don't think it's a big deal. To talk about it. But I ended up with Jessica Biel's dog for the last, I don't know. She was with me a lot while living there, but then they had their first child, and Tina came to live with me for like the last 5 years of her life. And then the same thing with Bill Burr's dog. I had her for about 6 years. So I love that. And anyway, it's cool to.
Wes, why don't you talk about the interaction with Bill Burr that led to that comedy blip? Talk about how that is it accurate compared to how he talks about it?
It is accurate. If you watch him, you can see him even use the leash techniques on the microphone cable. He keeps the dog psychology almost perfect. Funny. The only things he added into it were football and basketball stuff that I know nothing about, but everything else was right on, except for, she literally did. She grabbed my shorts, and they were brand new shorts, and I didn't wear underwear.
Black cargo shorts.
Yes, of course. And I didn't wear underwear until probably 3 years ago. I started wearing underwear. Okay. And that dog ripped my shorts off right there on Jefferson Boulevard, which is like, and once I told him to get out of there, now I got to make it back to my facility, which there's a female client sitting on the stoop with her dog. And I had a long shirt. I'm trying to walk and still trying to keep Cleo killing me. Right now there's a bait. Now there's a worm hanging. So, but hey, can you, move so I can, it was pretty wild. That we should,
what was her energy like?
She was one of those dogs. It was back in the day when the blue nose pit bulls first started, and they were really, really overbred to try and get out there on the market. And I dealt with a lot of blue pit bulls at that time that were just gone. She had a big dent in her head, and she had every single behavioral issue you could imagine. And I think she was one of those ones that was bottle fed as well. But when she lived here, even for as long as she lived with me, when I moved the crates to clean, if I didn't put hers back exactly, it could be 2 inches off, and it'd take 3 days for her to get back to a comfortable area. Because when something changes, it was a labor. I don't know if that's the right word. I worked a lot for 6 years with Cleo. I traveled, so it was very challenging where she was going to stay. I always had to drive to LA because she would stay at this vet when she was a puppy. And so her association to that place when Bill would travel, I could take her in there and people would go, Cleo, and she'd be all happy, not try to kill any dogs or people. And I'm like, whoa, that's a really good example of what an association is and how it's different from training. And I always work association.
I got racked on a post from some people about that, saying that to understand the memory, you have to understand that they can only think about something that's present, right? Meaning that they're not holding a memory in the forward or the back, but the memory can only be triggered by something in the present, a smell, sight, or sound in the present. And if that isn't there, then they can't have a thought about it, right? So if it's not in the present, they can't go get a thought. And, of course, my dog remembers this. Like, shut, no, they don't, dude. It fucking looks like it, but they don't. And like to what you're saying right there. So even though we've done this for so long, I don't know about you, I get reminded by some of the most simple lessons so powerfully sometimes like that you have a hard time, ever letting something like that go.
It's not easy to wrap your head around as a human, but that's our responsibility. And I'll share a story right now, or an understanding, my way of looking at an association. And I give it to people and put it in their perspective, and they can't believe it. And then they start to feel it. And this is truly an association to me. Of course, it sounds like training or memory. Humans have memory and associations. So I always do, what's 2 + 2? And everybody goes 4. Yeah. What color is your car? Gray. And I go, tell me about the time that your dog bit your grandmother. And then they start to get all like this. And I go, right there, that's perfect. You just felt a memory. That's an association. So it's hopped up on emotional steroids, in my opinion. So an association, especially for humans, is when a memory collides with a high level of emotion, good or bad, and now it's forever. Associations never go away, but memories, they can fade and all of that. But association, it's there forever. Now, so this is, and real quick, this is what I tell people that say, no, my dog knows. I go, if I walked into your house and I grabbed your dog and I put it in the vehicle and I drove away for about a couple of blocks to a mile, the dog would be like, where are we going? What's happening? I'm back there, right? And I tell people, your dog doesn't know who you are anymore. Once I cross that line to where the dog isn't looking back, and now it's like, just like in the video that Bill says, he used to feed me, be my friend. And so basically, now the dog doesn't know anything about the life of it had, even if it was 6 years. Doesn't matter, good or bad, it does not remember them. And people are like, no. And I go, and they're like, how? And I go, well, now the dog is learning where it fits in. And they go, but how come a dog can remember this? And I go, well, I'm not done yet. So if I were to bring the dog back 6 months, a year, 2 years later, we might drive down the neighborhood and the dog would be like, hey. And then I roll the window down. Hey, pull into the driveway and the dog's like, hey, wait a second. The door opens and the owner comes out. Hey, wait a second. Oh, where is it going?
But if it's nervous, if it has more of the nervous energy, I mean, it's got the nose on.
Yeah, I'm just giving an example that you can take left or right. And you're right. If it's nervous, it might not want to go in. But I'm just trying to help people understand how it works. And that's still only half of the understanding. They're like, oh, okay, I get it. I go, well, let me really blow your mind away. If I were to move into your house, kick you out, and you don't come back, now your dog remembers you every single day for a period of time, because everything in the house is associated to you. And so the dog will mourn. It might even get anxious. It'll look for all the spots that we had together, because it will mourn because you're not there anymore. That's the difference. Take it away, doesn't know. Bring it back, it remembers. Take you away, it knows, it remembers until you're gone. And then you come back, same thing. A file opens. And I'm like, oh, hang on a second. Hey, or hey, you're not putting me back there, to your point, if it's nervous.
Todd had a video on that, by the way.
Yeah.
He had a video. That was a really good video.
Analogy of the file is that they hold it in a file. I use equal signs. I just, on the whiteboard I just put equal signs up so people can see. I go, so the brain is basically a giant association supercomputer. That's it. And you're just linking two things, and I'll put equals up. And so then I'll be like, all right, how does your dog feel about food? And they'll talk about hyped up. So then I'll just write food equals excitement. And I just kind of go through so they see that the senses, it's like PTSD, your nose, eyes, ears are bringing in information, and they're connecting it to an activity, an environment, and a feeling, right?
Exactly.
And so if something really terrible happened to you while you're, doing this thing over here, but somebody was cooking chicken soup over here, 2 weeks from now, you could smell chicken soup and be traumatized by whatever it was that was in front of you. And that the brain is so powerful. And you were saying something too earlier, Lynn, about, one of the things that we're emphatic about is not letting people relive negative memories. We're in when we're in the heat, a dog, hey, if you're talking about an aggressive story, I don't know, in psychology, you're taught this, that when you have a memory like that, everything is relived, every feeling is relived, every part of it. So the heart rate goes back to where it was. I mean, it's a full on memory. Your body goes through the exact process minus one thing. The signal to the motor cortex is not sent. So your movement doesn't mimic what you went through, but every other feeling, visual, smell, all of that is reignited. So to the dog, you're back in the fight. You're back in the, you know what I mean? You're back.
That's a daily thing on walks for dogs. Yep. They're like walking along and they're like, oh, we can say over here on Walnut, there's this dog. Well, the dog isn't going to say, here's Walnut. It crosses the street and then suddenly is like, we got a little bit of time before we get up to where I'm working out. And they start to press forward, and the human already knows. And then they start to pull back, and then we're ramping it up, and we're helping them relive it, whether the dog is in the yard or not. Yeah. So and the same thing with humans. Everybody gets upset with me. That cortex thing, I don't know anything about science stuff, but what happens with me and the way I was raised and the trauma that I had, as an adult, I do feel everything, just like you said. But as an adult, whether it's the motor cortex or whatever, maybe this will answer my question. I instead of shutting down and hiding, I'll come forward now as an adult. But I have the fearful feelings from the trauma. But I'm a trained Marine and dog psychology guy that now I move forward. And it looks very aggressive, but it's coming from a fearful place, just like dogs. And you can't just snap them out of it. So an association, like I said, is forever. It's a groove. It's a path. It's Grand Canyon. So if we're going to create something that takes away this trauma, we have to build a deeper association that overshadows the initial one. So if water comes down this thing, if you haven't built the canal properly and it fills up, well, then it's going to spill over into the one it's very well worn into, and that's the reaction. So the new one, you can't stop building it until the old behaviors just aren't present. That's just how I see it. Is you got to do the work. And for me, I'm constantly doing the work. And when I have an episode or whatever, and it's a friend, I feel guilty for like 3 days to a week after, and I'm constantly apologizing, and then I try to explain, and then everybody says, "Oh, I get that, I understand it," but then they don't remember it, and so that I have to do it again, and now it starts to sound like an excuse, or it feels like an excuse, and then they go, "Okay, yeah, I get it," and then something will happen again, and they'll get upset, and I'm like, this is that. Oh yeah. So it's not their fault that they don't have that on the top of their memory list. Here comes Lynn, watch this and watch that. It is still my responsibility, and I've done my best to change everything. You can't rewire something permanently when it's been embedded. and I may use the wrong terminology there, but it's constant. It's a constant management, and that might be why I'm a cat now. I just stay away, mainly because I don't like having friends or people who are important to me feel like I'm angry with them, or part of the symptoms of my ADHD is I just constantly interrupt.
You don't want to be misunderstood, Lynn.
Yep, it's worst fear, misunderstood, and I'm constantly misunderstood, and nobody's fault. It's just disorder or dysfunctions with me. I give the codes, and I constantly have to give them. So I just stay away from people.
Well, Todd, you had mentioned, you talked about how people can't process the hard things. And we talked about this, I don't know, I know we talked about this personally, but we talked about EMDR, that eye movement I can't say that word, and processing. So basically it's that therapy that allows people to process things differently, and they use the eye movement, so that the humans can actually talk about the things that were traumatic, which in a lot of times they weren't able to talk about those things because it triggered something. And so with that EMDR therapy, now they're allowed to talk about things because of how because of the eye movement. And so I think like being able to do that, if people who've gone through traumatic experiences and they go through EMDR therapy, they're now able to talk about the things that triggered them, and that's going through the hard things. It's facing it in a way.
I've heard about the EMDR, but I haven't.
Yeah, Jen, my wife went through it, and as it was explained to her, basically what they're doing is you're mimicking or triggering REM, rapid eye movement. You're triggering now the reason is that it is a time in your brain, and actually I did a post on it, that you're in a certain state. Your brainwave is in the most open, suggestible state, and so they can tuck in a new ending to the story, or as you said, that you can tuck in something different because you're getting under the consciousness to change it at a deeper level, and it's mimicking something that's already there. And I think that's what's really cool about like the Andrew Hubermans and stuff. As science is progressing, one of the things that can really be taken advantage of is that there are a lot of things to help people that didn't used to be there. A lot of the mushrooms and psychedelic therapies, and a lot of like what you're talking about, art. And it's once the brain gets coded, it's almost impossible. I don't know if you guys have ever consciously tried to override. So I've consciously overrode a high level fear, like near phobia of flying. And then I unconsciously had one overridden for me just by a quirk. And I've talked about the country music thing. And it's interesting, like to believe you have a process. One of the things my dad always was interesting about is he always believed he was above the way it worked. He just thought that he could override the system. Like literally, like, cold. Like, Lynn, remember when I met you, it was 19 degrees or 25 degrees in LA. It's coldest it had been. The parking lots were frozen. You were fucking wearing shorts. And all you were like, it's cold. It's cold if you think it's cold. And it was that. It's like your mind is so suggestible. It's mind blowing. And I used to always be amazed when people could have a traumatic event or have somebody do a traumatic event. And they would be talking. They're like, oh, I forgive that person for killing my family, or I've completely accepted that I had my legs cut off. And I was always bewildered by it. But as I've gotten older, I understand that's the key. That's the key, is the ability to right away in a situation, find an acceptance and find a way to just, okay, that's it. And now we're just, like you said, moving forward. And that's one of the secrets in life that you're not taught as kids.
Yes. It's important. There's a lot of things that are important to teach kids early on. Not teaching them, they learn anyway. It's just going to be a rocky road because of how they learned it, and whether it was good or bad, that's what you learned. It's your imprint kind of time, right? So what your dad was doing was how I used to be. Mind over matter, Yep. And but after a while, when I worked with my psychiatrist, I always like to have the best people to learn from. And he was a professor at UCLA. And so he was very expensive. And I went to him for over 10 years. And what was the thing I was just talking about? Oh, masks is
memory. I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah, memory. Uh, he told me that I was wearing a mask because I said I was happy as a kid. You know, he's like, no, you weren't. I go, no, I was happy. I was happy until whenever I think it was. Anyway, and I said, okay, if it's a mask and I've taken it off here to learn how to fix myself, can I put the mask back on because I was happy. I don't care if it was fake. I don't care if a woman wants to fake it. As long as she makes me believe she's faking it, it's up to her. So if I can fake it with my mind that I'm happy,
Yeah.
now I can't because I've seen the other side, you know. But I used to be like, you would never believe my life existed the way it actually did when you were around me. I was always happy, always happy. But yeah, man, once you see, it's hard not to.
Just out of
Yeah.
curiosity, like, what if that therapist was wrong?
He's a psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist.
No,
What
no,
if he
he-
was wrong? What is the small chance that he was actually wrong?
That I could put the mask back on.
Whatever he said, whatever he told you, but he said you're
No,
hardwired.
he told me the truth. He told me the truth, and
But is
I
it the
wanted to go-
truth?
what I'm saying is, I wanted to go back to the lie, which is the mask,
Yeah.
and so I haven't been happy since. I mean, I am happy at times, but you're right. What if he's wrong? Like they told me I was going to lose the use of my arm in 10 years. Right now, it is 10 years. I still have use of my arm, but I don't have full use of my arm. But I lost 10 years in my brain because I'm worthless now. My
That's what I mean.
entire
Do you mind if I ask you a question, Lynn?
yeah, sure.
Is it? Are you keep using the word happy? Is that the goal?
Well, no, happy was just what I said to him at the time. I understand that happiness isn't something that you want to. It's a result from something you're creating. I'm just saying that happy, smiley, calm. What I wasn't calm. I was ADHD, but comfortable. Nothing bothered me. Nothing ever bothered me. Whatever word you want to use. At that time, I just said happy, and he said it was a mask, and it was, but I want it back. Just like sometimes I wish I didn't know dog psychology because
feel that one.
once you know, you can't not know, and then it's a responsibility. And so for me to uphold this responsibility of trying to find peace inside, I have to separate myself from everything, which is not good. You need to be around people, but I can't. It's like 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, you know, as I'm trying to find this balance and then screw it up. But I have been away from people for so long that I'm sort of out of touch.
So what'll happen is when I get you back around people, Lynn, is you can't talk for 10 days. So that's the easiest way not to fuck it up is you just can't say anything for 10 days. You just have to sit there and observe. It's the same lesson.
Nice. I wish that I could do that. I wish that I could go learn something where they said, shut up and don't talk. I just miss it, but I would love it. But yeah, I get what you're saying, Art. You're not wrong. I just was using that word. I mean, that you're not wrong that he could be wrong because I still have the use of my arm. And the damage that it did to my identity, you know, everything around everything I was successful in was all physical and psychological and, you know, reflex. And they're telling me that I can't do the thing I'm known for best anymore. And I'm also going to lose my arm. Boy, that did not. I would get back to the VA almost every day. I'm very persistent when I get onto something, and eventually they just would catch me at the door. I was not allowed into the VA anymore because I would come in, well, do some experiment. You know, I was trying to do the thing like your dad, just to overcome it. I'm like, no way that I'm gonna lose the use of my arm. And he said, well, you gotta learn. What's that department that you have to go and learn a new skill? And I'm like, what do you mean learn a new skill? Like, what about my arm? And I don't know if you can see, but he told me to walk around with my thumb in my belt loop. And I'm like, that's your prescription? I went off all the time. Like, who is this fucking guy that says that I'm going to lose the use of my arm? Why won't he come back out? I mean, it was the fear, right? And after that, then Canyon died, and then boom, I just started pushing delete. But we don't need to go into that right now.
Well, I mean, this can be related. This is how it put, when you look at dogs, right? I got a dog that was on this medication because a certain person saw this is the way. And the owners of this dog thought that this is the way that I should go, the route that I should go. I'm not saying that this psychiatrist was wrong, but what if there's a different way is what I'm trying to say. And when I look at it from the dog perspective, with the work that we do, this dog Gracie that we're working with, the owners decided to go a different route, and which was us. And when we come from a dog psychology perspective, what is this dog? What am I trying to achieve? How can I get this dog without the medications? How can I do the things in a natural, holistic way to guide this dog to be more confident, to believe that it can? So when I look at like the things that our personal life and sometimes the work that we do with the dogs, like what if we look at the people that we trust or that we go to help for? What if there's a different way or a different prescription, so to speak?
That's a great point, Art. And due to time, I wasn't able to give you my whole life story. I went through therapists, doctor, the free ones to the paid ones. I went through so many of them, and honestly, I would just kind of chew them up and spit them out, and they didn't know how to deal with me. This guy is the first one who put me in my place, and then I was like, oh, okay. And he didn't just put me in my place like, shut up. No, he put me in my place with intelligent words. And
did he say, that's not it? Is that what he said?
And a point of view. And I'm like, all right, I get this. So I invested all that time. And there's also another reason why I kept going to this guy for so long is because he was a professor. I wanted to learn as much as I could psychology wise. So I'd come in with specific questions. He's like, oh, you don't need the answer to that in a clinical way. I do. And then I would go and work with my client. But I basically got a little bit of an education there, how to deal with people. But this guy almost couldn't handle me. I said, I don't know what they taught you in the 60s about psychology, but this is 2005. And every time I get to a point where I'm starting ready to let go, you look at your clock and say it's time to go. And then you say it's a safe place. And the next day you tell me, hey, if you hurt me, I'm going to have to end this. I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Yeah, I leave here with nothing to do. I got to wait for another week, 6 days and 24 hours before I come back to pick up where we left off, where it takes me all the way to the end before I start to loosen the jar. And you ask me how I'm feeling. And I tell you every time, don't ask me until I'm knee deep in it. But, he ultimately saw that and he started to wait and we started to work and we started to do things.
He's probably doing a podcast right now talking about you.
No, he was actually really, really good because he kept it very professional. No matter how much I saw, and I would ask him about the pain he had, and I would ask him about, you look very upset the last few times I've been in here, and blah blah. Anyway, leading up to where his wife ultimately died, and he was trying to keep it professional, but I just kept digging and digging, and then I would do things like, you must live close by, huh? Because why? I'm like, well, that's your bike out there, right? And he'd start to get all, you're not gonna, I'm like, hey man, I came here because I trust you. Stop thinking I'm gonna hurt you.
It's like Good Will Hunting. It's like an episode of Good Will Hunting. You see that movie?
It really was. It really was. But I've been out here for a long time, and I've often thought about maybe I should talk to him again because I can't talk to anybody out here. There's no way I'm going to start my entire story over again and have to go through people like I did before I found him. It's very hard. Just like dog training, I guess. You got to go through several trainers. So your point isn't wrong or bad. It's actually right on. But it's more about how you relate to whoever's there to build you up. And so if that's true, that what if he's wrong, then what if we're wrong? right? But
Yeah.
we're not wrong, right? And I'm not saying that any other trainer is wrong. I'm saying that maybe they didn't have the information at the time. They didn't read the room well enough. They didn't, they didn't have their bedside manner, polished. Whatever it is, when you can relate to somebody who's had six, or when the person can relate to you who's had six other trainers, they don't want to let you go. They keep you. Even if they don't need you, they're checking in just in case you're still there. So yeah, it's a valid point. What if he's wrong? I would think that the other guy was wrong, not this guy. This guy was methodical and very on. And I just would have liked to have done something more. But anyway,
So
do you guys want to hear my
let's
story?
get back to the crazy
Clients?
stories because we have a few minutes left.
Yeah, I'll try and make mine really fast then.
No, make it detailed.
Okay. Again, it's a celebrity one, and I think it's all right to do it. It's been many, 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 many years. So I was over at Leah Remedy's place when she was at the top with King of Queens, and she had Husky. Dog wanted to really, Huskies that aren't fulfilled, they'll bite. And this one wanted to bite a lot. And she kept walking away. And while I was in the middle of trying to get the dog to calm down, very important things for the client to see. And the door kept opening. More people kept coming in. And then a catering company came in and set up like the highest level sushi on her 25-foot kitchen bar there. And I just, and back in that day, man, you don't, what the hell are you doing? And everybody stopped and looked while I was really making her feel like a student, that wasn't supposed to speak, but wasn't speaking. I said, you double booked? How am I, on and on and on. We had a little battle there and I just walked out. Right. So the point of that is she was at the height. I get it. I was at my height. I get it, clashing, but you hired me. And so I have the right of way in my mind. Is many years later, many years, and I'm over at another celebrity, Jennifer Lopez's house. And all of a sudden a car pulls up. I'm out front with Jennifer and her dogs. And oh my God, it's Leah Remedy. I'm like, oh shit. So she goes to kind of back up so she can pull in, and she right in the middle, she goes, don't I know you? And I go, yeah, you do. You had the Husky, right? And she went like this. Everything changed about her. The whole point of this story is that Jennifer Lopez made all three of us Kool-Aid and hot dogs on paper plates, and we sat at a kid's little table on the back patio, and we all became friends again. I thought that was pretty cool that we could.
Then you drank the fucking Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I did. I drank the Kool-Aid. But yeah, crazy clients. That was one story. But most people that have that status, even if they don't have celebrity status, they think that they have, and they want to. You're the help. I'm like, no. You need my help. I'm not the help. That's not going to go anywhere. How can you learn from the help, right? If you're going to put it in quotes. So no, that was pretty wild though, because we had a knockdown drag out, and then I walked out, and then we had Kool-Aid with Jennifer Lopez, and it's all good now.
What flavor was it?
It was red. It's a little red mustache.
So Colleen had really good advice because she had living in LA, she also had a lot of celebrity clients. And she said, when you walk in, she goes, act like you don't have time for them.
Yep.
She goes, you go there and act like they're taking your time and be like, hey, I need you. Come on, guys. I don't have much time. We got to go. And she goes, that language. And I've always used the, like if I got a real wealthy man in front of me that's kind of being weird, I'm like, dude, you're poor in the animal world, right? I go, you're like shit when it comes to energy. You ain't got shit. I go, I got all the money in the world right now. I go, and that's why you have problems. So if you want to learn, I can make you rich. And then I walk away. And I don't fucking, they have to like come chase it down. It's just to make them feel broke is like the only thing they really understand that like hits them. And if they're being a little cagey, sometimes, I tend to find that it maybe they were going to give me 5 minutes. They end up giving you 25 minutes. So, they linger longer. They get caught up in something because suddenly you move the dog in a way they can't do. And they're like, all right, shit. He just kind of called me out in my own home and he's doing shit I can't do.
Yeah.
The women are different though. You can't play that. That doesn't play.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Jessica Biel was one of my favorite celebrity clients. She took direction well, right? I put myself in the director's seat for her, and sometimes with other, I'll say cut in the middle of a conversation every now and then, like a director might, and they're like, "What did you just say?" And then they're like, "Okay," and change. But she would always listen to everything, attempt to do them, and call me. This happened. Did I do it correctly? Okay, I love that. It's amazing. She was actually. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I had a client yesterday teach me I was giving direction on the leash, like I was giving this little drill, like how to do it. And she goes, "Can you say Simon Says?" And I went, "Holy shit, that's brilliant." And as soon as I added Simon Says, everything else made more sense just by adding that before direction. Hey, Simon Says, stop.
Well,
Yeah.
when Lynn works with like children, he does that red light, green light.
Yeah.
So cool.
Oh, they'll wait too. Like I got a kid in the pool and I go green light and they're splashing around, and then I'll stop to talk to the client about whatever. And the mom will say, "He's waiting for you to say red light." Oh, red light. And then he would stop. He's going to drown. Kids are great.
Well, I mean, dude, you have to come across. I've done so many things. Like I bring in, I'll bring in the heavy vest, the X-Dog vest. And a lot of times if I have a fidgety kid, I'll be like,
Carry this.
Can you hold
for
this?
me?
Yeah.
How long can you hold this for?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll stand hold that thing forever. And as soon as they got that focus in their mind, they're like, all right, I got this thing.
Yeah.
Tell them they can do it, and I'll show you.
I can hold it forever.
And that's another thing too, being able to talk to kids. I'm going to put that video up again because it's really amazing to understand how to talk to, well, not learning how to, but the importance of understanding.
You can get creepy real quick right now, Lynn, so just be careful.
Well, let me turn on a light. But the parents, they'll talk to you like you're an adult about the kids while the kids are there. And the kids are talking from maybe 3 years of experience, 5 years of experience in life. And this one video was amazing. This kid kept saying, "Can I pet your dog?" and run over to the dog to pet him before. And so I can't remember what the mother said. And the kid kept saying, "Not true, not true." And the mother would say, "Quiet down," and this and that. Okay. What I did was, what your mother is saying is that you ask for permission, but you don't wait for the answer. You just run over, and it's very dangerous. So you really want to take your time. And the kid would be looking at me. And from that point on, when you make that connection or translate adult to a child, when a parent should be doing that, then they stick with you, and then they start correcting the parents.
I got to get this one in, dude. I have to. Just for another story.
Yeah, go for it. Last one.
Dude. Oh my God. So 6 months ago, I have a family's coming, some small aggressive dog. So they get here. It is a dad, a stepmom, and a 15-year-old. Now I'm told the 15-year-old is going to be nonverbal. So in my mind, I have a child that's got a disability. Okay.
Yeah.
So and for the beginning part of this, it's really kind of strange because this girl's real quiet and real sullen. Like I'm starting to get like an angry vibe more than I'm getting a mental vibe. And she's like this. And as the conversation gets started, what I have is she's pulled between, her mom and her dad. And the one side believes in the Caesar thing and the other side doesn't. So this girl's completely opposed to Caesar, knows what I'm all about. And what I didn't know until after the fact is what the nonverbal part was because of that. She was completely angry and opposed to what I was doing. So we start talking and I'm like, I'm going to bring a couple dogs out. And I go, and if the dogs get in a fight, I go, these are the things that I'm going to do. And I just want, are you going to be, I'm talking to her. And the funny thing is she's starting to loosen up, right? And I'm thinking, okay, cool. I'm making some progress. So I go and I bring out a dog and I bring out a couple dogs and it gets going. And I look over and this fucking girl is filming it secretly because she's expecting a fight and she's expecting something bad to happen. And this 15-year-old girl was going to try to expose me and turn me in and basically ruin whatever she thought she could ruin. And I lit those parents up when I found that out. Not only did I light them up, I put so much pressure on that kid, I brought all the dogs out at the same time. And I brought them all out, and I made that kid sit there and deal with it because
Film
I
it.
was
Film it, girl.
abhorred that a 15-year-old thinks it's okay to try to take somebody's down. So in essence, she would have taken me down, right? My business, my livelihood, and therefore the way that I support my family at 15 because she disagreed with something. There's a story.
Cancel
That's
culture.
the day and age that we're in right now, man.
There are people out there that will try to do that. And I
I
never
don't know
thought
if
that
I lost you guys or if it's me.
but that was the most recent holy shit story. So I had to get that when he started talking about talking to kids a certain way. I remembered that one.
Well, I'm talking about kids, not teens.
Yeah, I know, but that one came up because it was like, you think you're making leeway, and then all of a sudden you're like, what? Holy
I can make
smoke.
leeway with them too. I relate more to kids and teens than I do adults. I think I was stunted. But yeah, that's terrible, man.
You're like Michael Jackson.
No,
Just kidding.
no, not at all. Not in that way at all.
I was just kidding. It was
But you
terrible
see
joke.
me around.
I know you're great. I mean, honestly, I even when you've talked to some of the adults, there was one time we did that Zoom call with that family in Austin. That was amazing, actually. I was like blown away how you were able to build this woman's confidence, and how she was able to like, yeah, okay, I get it. You know, that was really cool to watch.
Thank you. That
Anyways, I think we've reached the limit. We are at an hour already. I want to thank you guys for listening. I want to thank everyone for listening. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe on wherever you listen to it. If you could leave a comment also, we enjoy reading them. We've got a few comments on YouTube. And one of the things we hear a lot is it feels like you guys are in the room. So we want to continue to carry on that theme of these stories of conversation between myself, Lynn, and Todd, and also bring in the dog psychology part into it. So thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
All right.